Heads and tails. What do you do with the heads and tails? Moonshine Life Group by J.B. Wagonmaker. Heads and tails distilling is a common practice used by distillers to separate the high-proof alcohols that come off of the still and turn them into a clear, smoother, and more enjoyable spirit. This process is done during the distillation process and involves taking a sample of the distillate coming off of the still, typically towards the end of the distillation run, and then separating out the different fractions or cuts that come off from the vapor created by the evaporator coil. The heads fraction consists of the low-proof, volatile alcohols such as methanol and acetaldehyde, which can be quite harsh and unpleasant to consume. The tails fraction consists of the high-proof alcohols including ethanol, which contribute to the more smooth and enjoyable flavor desired in alcohol beverages. Typically, the fraction that lies between the two extremes is the hearts fraction, and it contains the alcohols that create the desirable flavor and aroma. By removing the harsh heads and the flavorless tails, one can create a pleasant tasting and enjoyable final product. Can you drink the heads from moonshine? No, you should not drink the heads from moonshine. The heads are the initial liquid that is run off during the distilling process and are generally the most potent and contain the highest levels of fusel oils, the compounds that give moonshine its distinctive flavor. Consuming these oils can cause a variety of uncomfortable symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, dizziness, abdominal and chest pains, headaches, and rapid heart rate. Some of the compounds can even cause organ and nervous system damage over time. The tails, which is the liquid left at the end of the distilling process, are much lower in fusel oil content and are generally considered safe for consumption. I clear mine and use them to proof down my hearts. How many heads is 5 gallons of mash? It is impossible to provide an exact answer to this question without additional information on the size and shape of the heads and the size of the mash, but it is possible to make an educated guess. In general, 5 gallons of any type of mash will yield around 2 to 3 ounces heads. This can vary depending on the type of mash and how concentrated or not it is. You should also keep in mind that if the heads are large in size, each one will take up more volume than if the heads are smaller. In addition, during the mashing process, some of the mash may be lost due to boiling, evaporating, and rinsing. This will reduce the overall yield and can further affect the number of heads that can be produced from 5 gallons of mash. Overall, the exact number of heads produced from 5 gallons of mash will depend on the type of mash and the size and shape of the heads. However, it is estimated that 5 gallons of mash will yield anywhere from 5 to 6 ounces of heads. Once you're satisfied with the overall look and feel of the head and feel that you've given it enough attention to make it realistic, then you can call the head finished. If you're aiming for another style, you'll have a different set of criteria to check to know that you're done. Do you have to throw out heads on second distillation? No, it's not necessary to throw out heads on a second distillation. While many distillers throw out the heads on the first distillation, they do not always do so on the second. This is because the heads contain both desirable and undesirable flavors. Leaving them in can result in an undesirable flavor, but can at the same time give the alcohol a fuller, more rounded, and more complex flavor profile. For example, the heads of corn whiskey contain 2-methyl-1-propanol, and leaving some of those heads in an alcoholic beverage can add fruity, flowery, and estery aromas and flavors. Ultimately, it's up to the preference of the distiller and the flavor they're trying to achieve. What percentage of moonshine is heads? The percentage of moonshine that is classified as heads can vary greatly. Generally speaking, It is said that around 10 to 30% of moonshine produced can be classified as heads. The remaining 70 to 90% is usually referred to as tails. However, this percentage can also be affected by distillation techniques and the specific ingredients used. The higher the percentage of heads, the higher the proof of moonshine produced, which is why distillers try to produce a high percentage of heads in order to increase the proof of the moonshine. Can you drink the tails in distilling? No, you should not drink the tails in distilling. The tails, also known as feints, are the latter part of a distilling run and typically contain the most concentrated level of undesirable compounds. These compounds include undesirable flavors and aromas, higher boiling esters, fatty acids, acetones, and ketones, and can contain higher levels of methanol. Drinking the tails can be extremely dangerous, as even small amounts of methanol can cause serious health complications. For this reason, it is advised to always discard the tails rather than to drink them. In order to rerun heads and tails, the game can be set up exactly as before, with players taking turns and guessing the results of each flip. Generally speaking, lower quality, smaller stills may yield less, while higher quality larger stills can yield a bit more. How much head do you throw away when distilling? It depends on the type of distilling process you are performing and the desired outcome. For example, the batch distilling process typically discards the first 15 to 20% of the distillate, including heads and tails, due to their higher potential for contamination and off flavors. Continuous distillation may discard even more, typically up to 30%. The amount of distillate discarded is dependent on the distiller's experience, taste and judgment. In some cases, distillers may predetermine and adjust the amount of heads and tails to discard per run depending on the desired results. It is often recommended to run small test batches of the distillate throughout the process, in order to better gauge the desired outcome. Ultimately, the amount of heads and tails discarded is up to the distiller, based on the type of spirit being distilled and the desired quality and flavor. Join our channel, subscribe and don't miss the new videos. Warning: producing alcohol at home in large quantities, labeling and bottling is prohibited by law in certain countries. This channel is for entertainment, for home distillers who make their own drink, for their own consumption. All drink recipes are created by us, and I am the author of all the content in these videos. If you are a distiller, or want to learn this hobby, here is another recipe. Thanks for watching and it shines.